Sorry, that's right, you guys.
First, I'd just like to introduce myself. My name is Keith Buckley, and I'm also known as Joe Friday on the G and on the CJ2A page, because I want to just know the facts, nothing but the facts. More speculation. I don't want to have to do a Mythbusters episode here. But first, I'd just like to thank the reunion committee for allowing me to present these awards. I feel they're very important, and they've got people that really significantly support the hobby. And I see many people in this room that deserve one, but they limit them to 3 awards a year to make sure they're special. And I put together a couple of slides here just to make certain that you're aware that these really are bricks from the plant. We were going to have this at the end, but I wanted to move it up because I know Ron's going to have a couple of comments about each of these slides.
Colors show the war production, what was built in what building.
This particular drawing actually shows the various buildings, and as Ron said, they're not only color-coded, but the slashes, the diagonal lines, designate buildings that were actually controlled by the military, by the government. They weren't controlled by Willys. But I think this blew itself up a little bit because the other buildings I wanted to show you were off on the end here. Those were typically the Jeep plant that everybody thinks of. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Ron, this is the Jeep House Museum.
Yep.
This picture was taken roughly 2001, I think.
Could be anywhere.
Was it still standing in 2001?
Yeah, went down in after 2.
Okay. Now, you saw some pictures of the modern plant. For those of you that hadn't been to the Parkway plant, there was always a prominent Jeep sign on the side of the building. And they demonstrated extreme care in removing that sign, as you'll see a little bit later. But at this point, you can see that they've actually already knocked out the walls of a number of the different buildings. They were actually pushing things out in order to clear the floors to demolish the building. Now you can see the Daimler Chrysler banner there that says "Expect the Extraordinary." And I think the next few slides you'll realize just how extraordinary that was. That's how the Jeep sign came down. Apparently there was an argument over who deserved the Jeep sign, so they thought the best thing to do was to destroy it. And the corporate portion of the company obviously was very strong and took over, and this was the Building 82, the old experimental laboratory, but this contained human resources, payroll, and timekeeping, among other offices. And the care with which the documents were handled was demonstrated by the fact that the parking lot was littered with UAW timekeeping records, including lifetime earnings and Social Security numbers. And this I actually sent into the CJ3B page because I thought it was kind of unique. I didn't believe it when somebody told me that everything was pushed out of the building until I saw manual pages flowing across the parking lot. Now, Jim Marski and I had to pose to shed a tear over the destruction of Building 82. Very sentimental moment. As you can tell, that was a while ago. But it was a secured demolition. You couldn't actually get into the facility through the fences, as you can see, or as you can see. So you couldn't actually tell that there were items like the dynamometer still sitting in the corner of the test lab when the buildings came down. Nor could you go in and walk through the assembly lines, or look out of the building toward where the ramp was that they used to drive Jeeps up to the roof, or the final finish line. Now, some of the Toledo Brick Award recipients spend a lot of their time with research.
And you might think that this is what it looked like when you're trying to find Jeep data. Now at this point I need to step back and mention something I should have mentioned at the beginning. The Brick Awards are not for researchers. They're for people that have done things for this hobby. People in the past have been recognized for the fact that they come to a lot of events and they bring the whole family to make sure that the whole family understands that this is a hobby that can involve everybody. Some individuals have been honored because of the quality of the restorations they've done. Others have been honored for the parts that they re-engineer and remanufacture. Some others actually have just passed on parts and passed the information to somebody that needed it so they could buy the part that they were looking for. Now, I'm not saying that records weren't kept, because they were. Some of the individuals spend a lot of time actually digging up the original records, which are either paper or microfilm, where these are actually aperture cards. But in reality, the storage technique was a little bit different. Now, this doesn't look quite so bad because it looks like there's lights in the room. But there actually were no windows, one door, no lights, and your actual view was more like this, since you were wearing a headlamp so that your hands were free to flip pages. And the archive was even organized a little bit better than the other piles. But the bottom line here is the data is out there for those people that are interested in as Ron put it last night, there's 3 of you guys that are interested in this, and you're all here. Nobody else in the world is. But those of you that might look at the web, you keep hearing about the Nort-Young data for serial numbers. The Nort-Young data does exist, and this is an example where Nort actually used an adding machine to add up the columns for how many they made of each vehicle. So when you see a mistake in the spreadsheet, realize that it wasn't Excel, it wasn't a computer spreadsheet, it was a guy with an adding machine and a bunch of graph paper. And of course, once you find old records, the battle may not be over. Try reading some of the old prints. And I had to throw this in, this is the last slide, but for West Nettle's sake, for the M38s, yes, they did make M38s in Strata Blue. Every part that Willys made, they had a process for. This even tells you what the weight of the paint on each part should be, a separate part number for thinner, etc. So I know that the reunion guys didn't know I was going to throw some of this in, but I need you to understand these bricks really did come from this plant. With that, I'd like Mark Morenchen to come up. Mark?
Would you like to introduce yourself or say anything to the group?
I'd like to thank my sponsors, Taylor and Harry, and y'all look good out there.
Now this particular individual, I think many of us know because there have been a lot of really, really hard to find parts that have been remanufactured recently. I would like to ask Jeff Petrovich to step up here.
Wow, I didn't expect that at all. I don't know what to say except thank you very much. I love the Jeeps, and I want to see them all the way they're supposed to be made, the way we love to drive them, you know, where they're, and I appreciate your, oh man, you guys caught me off guard here. I just appreciate the fact that you appreciate me, and I'll keep doing what I do, and thank you.
And last but not least here, you probably know him as topbows.com, but I'd like to ask Michael Myers to come up here.
Thank you. I guess it starts off by saying thanks to Jeff, because without his engineering, I wouldn't do for the top bows for this hobby that we do. And Jeff says thank you, and thanks to everybody that supports topbows.com very much. Greatly appreciated.
Once again, I'd like to thank the reunion committee for allowing me to present these awards, and I'd like to turn the floor back over to Bob Christie.
Did you want to have the Toledo Brick Award winners that are here stand?
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that part. There are many Toledo Brick Award recipients from past years in the room here. Would you please stand up for recognition? Ron?
I want a rebuttal here, I want to get up there and talk.
Wow.
2 minutes.
The picture's over.
Okay.
I got.
I don't know, Josh, I'll need your help because I don't know how to go backwards with this.
Go back to the colored photo.
Okay. Is there any way to shrink the colored photo? Because the buildings he's going to talk about seem to
No,
go
you know,
off
that's
the
the
screen.
way it
That's
was.
okay?
Yeah. You want to shrink something, look at it.
First slide.
Don't run away. Okay, remember I told you my father worked in the old body shop. That's why this has no color to it. That was rented, that was our 45 building, our main body shop. That was rented by the U.S. Army. That's why it had nothing to do with Willys Overland. Okay, keep going. Oh, wait, go ahead. Okay, that's the Jeep museum. Go ahead. Okay, this Jeep sign. When American Motors owned us, in '86, I was chairman for the International Car Show, Willys Overland, and there was an AMC, red, white, and blue emblem up there. When I had my dash plaques made, I had an artist do the front end of that, and it's on there. So, but when they were tearing the plant down, right outside the Jeep house, I was retired, but I was going in there to do work. And the man for Chrysler that was in charge of the tear down had a trailer right behind the museum. And I said, what are you guys going to do? We'd like to have that sign for the museum. And he said, I'm going to tear it down and scrap it. I said, but we, so we got a hold of a vice president of Chrysler. And he said, that sign will come down and be saved. And I told that to the head of the head contractor there. And he says, I don't care what you say, it's coming down. That's why it went down. We tried to save it, but it didn't happen. Also, the YJ Wrangler that was on top of the building. People raised hell in Toledo. What? Take that Jeep down. No, it's going to come down with the building. No, we got to save it. Said something to me. I said, I don't care if it comes down. It's a YJ Jeep, and that started in Canada, not Toledo. It came back to Toledo in '91, but if it goes, it goes. So they just knocked it down, but they tricked the people because they put a new red TJ right at gate 4. So people thought it was the one that was on the building. What else you got? Tiny Doc, I think. On that one where you had the sign with the human resources and everything?
Yes.
Get to that one. Okay. You said that's 82 building, that's 52 building, research building.
So it's to the left of I'm sorry, 52, that's what it said in the sign.
Yeah, 52, because in the back, I took Taylor Stamp and some other people on a tour.
52, my mistake.
But that was really them crying though, right?
They cry a lot, so I don't know. But in the back of that building is where I had a Jeep museum garage. I confiscated a garage back there with permission of the plant manager, and I had a dozen or so Jeep vehicles in there. I think that was all I had to say. I'll keep going in case you anything else. And then one DVD I brought shows the history of Jeep, and it also has some tearing down of the buildings. But I do, our videographer there, a friend of mine, and he gave me 3 tapes. He went, as they were tearing it down, he filmed it. And I have an old 3 of the VHS tapes. But like I say, when I showed you the pictures, it's all vacant now. And they are putting a road in for the new complex if they can get anybody interested in building there. I think that was all mainly the 52 building and the, I want to say about that body shop.